Welcome. You've tuned into the NCO Guide podcast with your host, Command Sergeant Major Dan Elder, U.S. Army, retired. The NCO Guide is your source of uncensored discussion and commentary specifically for U.S. Army non-commissioned officers. You can tune into our podcast, sign up for our blog, or follow us in social media channels for professional discussion and sharing of knowledge and information between me and my guests and our subscribers. You can reach the NCO Guide online at danelder.com. Go there using your computer or smartphone. Leave us comments or click on the Ask a Question link. The NCO Guide is sponsored by pptclasses.com, the pre-made military training site. Now, drop your rucksack, pull up a footlocker, and prepare to engage your brain-housing group for another episode of the NCO Guide. Hua?
Hey everybody, welcome to podcast number 3. Hope you like our new introduction. We'll continue to get better at these podcasts, and of course with me I've got my co-host, Command Sergeant Major Archie Davis, U.S. Army, retired. How are you doing today, Archie?
Oh, great. Fine day to be a soldier.
So today we're going to talk about the authority of the non-commissioned officer. Some of you who read the blog may recall we were talking about the Armed Forces NCO Petty Officer book, and one of the topics that came up that we kind of delved into a little bit was Chapter 4. And in Chapter 4, they talked a little bit about the authority of the non-commissioned officer. They talked about complimenting the officer. So complimenting the officer was one of the chapters that kind of piqued our interest and something that we wanted to delve into deeper, and we really wanted to explore some of the things that relate to the authority of non-commissioned officers. Where does it come from? And kind of look at maybe some areas where there may be some challenges, or put some experience behind NCO authority, and then talk about ways that non-commissioned officers get their power and their authority, and get some feedback on it. So Archie, what do you think about that for this week?
Well, it's a great topic, and the non-commissioned officer authority, I always look at the creed of the non-commissioned officer and how it starts off. No one is more professional than I, and with that said, that statement, we want to make sure that we're knowledgeable on the authority that we have by virtue of regulations, by virtue of our position, whether it's general military authority, that, we need to make sure that, our enlisted soldiers know that general military authority basically is for all that's in uniform. And, I've seen that a lot of that is not being enforced within our armed forces, and some of it is because of the fact that we are not preaching it. We are not, talking to our soldiers and our petty officers or whatnot on, what authority they have by virtue of their position.
That's great. I appreciate that feedback and input. So what got me on this one is in Chapter 4, about page 40 or so, they state the obvious, and we all know it, and it's that there can be only one commander. And commanders command, and non-commissioned officers don't. If you look at the chain of command from a squad member, the chain of command runs from the soldier to their team leader or their squad leader, up through their section if they are based on a section, or their platoon, up to the company. through the battalion and brigade, and we all know the traditional organizational structure within the Army. And as you look at each one of those levels, the squad leader is the only non-commissioned officer in the chain of command as directed. So the fact that they remind us that there is one commander. There are successive levels of command. So there's only one platoon commander, and that's the platoon leader. There's one company commander, there's one battalion commander, and there's one brigade commander. And there's only one non-commissioned officer in that chain of command. So what they also say in the book, which is again, this is nothing new. It's this is good non-commissioned officers know this, but what they also say is that we as enlisted, we bring our perspective to our commanders. We take our experience, our knowledge, and we provide a perspective back to the commander, who then makes decisions and issues orders. But one of the things that was just kind of telling to me in the book, and I'm going to read this, and I'll try not to read too many things, but it says they, meaning enlisted soldiers, must never appear to supersede the official chain of command or impede the force from accomplishing what needs to be done based on orders and guidance from the commander. So we're gonna kind of dissect that a little bit. We here at the NCO Guide on podcast number 3 are going to talk about the authority of the NCO, and we're going to take a look at a few of those things. So Archie, you know as well as I do, there's different types of authority that we are provided as soldiers. The authorities that come to us through governance, through regulations and policies and procedures, and there's also other authorities. So you want to tee us off on that?
Yes. In your Armed Forces Guide in Chapter 4, it commented about, we got to know our commander's intent. Because basically, if we don't know, then it's a disconnect from the start. We need to ensure that that guidance is clear and defined. We need to ensure that we understand if it's just a read back to him before we go out there and go out there and lead the soldiers. Because again, I revert back to the creed of the non-commissioned officer. It states that officers of my unit will have, maximum time to accomplish their duties. And by giving us the authority giving us that authority, we will allow the commander to command. We will allow him to command. The verbiage that was in the actual chapter 4 on page 39 was 39 and 40, I think they hit it, was empowerment. Giving you those responsibilities we know that we must achieve, that we should hold dear to our heart to execute. We need to ensure that empowerment that the officers give us, we understand clearly. And I think a lot of that is not being done, or it's not understood clearly, because it's looking into a dark mirror sometime, or a dark glass. We just got to clear up some things, and I think the Armed Forces Guide will clear some of that up just reading through it.
Well, I'm going to change gears for a moment and just kind of put our head down in the Army regulations, and the guiding doctrine for the authorities that are empowered and non-commissioned officers come from AR 600-20, and you can take a look at the regulation, but I also kind of like to go back to the NCO Guide The NCO guide, the field manual NCO guide, not our podcast, but the FM is pretty clear. It kind of helps us out, even though the authoritative doctrine is 620. FM 7-22.7 outlines the duties and responsibilities and authority of the non-commissioned officer, and they talk about the two types of authority, and that's command authority, and that's the type of authority that comes to us based on our position, and then of course that general military authority, the authority that comes to us through the President and the Constitution and by virtue of our service. So when you look at command authority, I mean, that's what our commanders have, but that's what we have when we are put in charge within our own organizations. If I'm a platoon sergeant, there are authorities that are inherent with that. If I'm running a range, if I'm manning an outpost and I'm the senior leader there, there's authorities that come along with that, and there are implied and directed tasks. Now, there's also authorities that come to us by virtue of our rank, by the virtue of the fact that we serve. Non-commissioned officers have general military authority, and through that, we have the ability to do things like on-the-spot corrections. Safety violations and activities that we can detain a soldier in certain conditions and for periods of time. So we have this general military authority as non-commissioned officers. However, that command authority is not something that belongs to us. We have authority that is granted to us by our position in the command authority role. However, we are not the commanders, and we are advisors to commanders, and much of our authority flows from and through our commanders as they delegate their authority, not their responsibility, but as they delegate their authority to their subordinate leaders who operate under their guidance and command, their command guidance, and through their authority. So, Archie, I'd love to hear some thoughts, maybe about your take on command authority in general, the general authority that all non-commissioned officers are provided through their rank and position.
Well, yes, the commission officer, they establish the policies, manage resources. The NCOs conduct the Army daily business. And without a clear and defined direction of what your reach is within your unit, you will not be effective. And we must, because we are there with the soldier on a regular basis. So if these authorities is not clear, your authority is not clear, you will not be allowed, you will not be effective in directing your soldiers, taking actions that's required to accomplish the mission and enforce good order and discipline within your organization. So we must, because that is our role as a non-commissioned officer, is, again, to direct those soldiers, take actions required to accomplish the mission, and enforce good order and discipline within the organization. So we, with knowing those levels of authority, we can do that effectively. Because at the end of the day, we keep the ball rolling. We the backbone of the Army, backbone of the non-commissioned officer corps, and so we have to ensure that once we step out there and say something, we know and our subordinates know basically where it's coming from. You got the authority to do it, and again, I think that the non-commissioned officers has that I have seen in the past few months and years. Some of them that I've touched base with hadn't been digging into our regulatory guidelines, and if we don't dig into the regulatory guidelines, then we don't know what authority that we have. So we've got to do that.
No, that's great, and I appreciate that insight. As I think about command authority, you can just look to, current operations, whether it's overseas or in our organizations. If you're assigned as a crew member in a military vehicle, a Humvee, an MRAP, the senior leader in that vehicle, if that's your squad leader, your platoon sergeant, the type of authority that they use to get from point A to point B or to employ that the systems on that vehicle, those are the authority that they have to get that done. Emanates from the command authority, the authority delegated by the commander of the organization, who's through that commander a mission has been ordered, and you're out taking part in in an operation. You're carrying out those orders, and as the vehicle commander issues orders and guidance, then the type of authority that they're using to accomplish the mission comes from the command authority that their commander has, and it's been delegated to them. So that's the type of command authority. That's an example of how command authority is used in accomplishing unit missions. Now, general military authority is one that a lot of times you'll hear folks say, I'm doing NCO business, and that's an interesting term, undefined or loosely defined. You'll hear folks that'll they'll kind of throw it around NCO business in a lot of different manners, and sometimes it's not a term that people all understand it the same, and some may even have negative thoughts of NCO business. But general military authority is the authority that all NCOs have afforded to them by the regulation and by the Constitution, and as such, there's things that go along with it. You have some implied tasks, such as on-the-spot corrections. That's whether it's a uniform violation or a vehicle, sitting in the motor pool with flat tires. You probably, if that's one of your pieces of equipment, you are obliged to take the steps, and sometimes sometimes they're not as clear cut, but quite often you can use that authority to accomplish the Army's business. So we've got to be aware of those types of authorities and where they emanate from. So I kind of want to take a turn and talk about, so if those are the types of authorities that were given, and we looked at I talked briefly about the chain of command. The one thing I didn't mention is the chain that parallels the chain of command, and that is the Non-Commissioned Officer Support Channel. So, Archie, kind of what's your thoughts about the Non-Commissioned Officer Support Channel? What is that? What's that all about, and what does that mean to us?
Well, what it means to us is that once we defined it, we need to ensure that the senior non-commissioned officer and that officer are online on how that's going to affect our organization. And I've seen, and I've been in, training, and I've seen it on slides of the Nco Support Channel, but I have seen it being effective. And the only way that it's going to be effective is that the chain of command and the Non-Commissioned Officer Support Channel is in sync. And that in sync is I need to know the commander's intent. I myself, as a senior non-commissioned officer, needs to know and understand what is the focus and the focus of this organization and that commander at the helm. And then I turn to my subordinate or my actual NCOs within that and ensure that they know what the non-commissioned officer channel brings to the fight and how that it complements the chain of command and where the commander wants to go in what direction that commander wants to go. And once we define those areas, we have a effective communication channel that will provide clear guidance to our soldiers, that will provide the safety and the welfare of our soldiers and their family members, and it will provide us with a fluid and vibrant organization that can go out and fight the nation wars. And that's what we're talking about here. We are talking about leaders being effective when the rubber meets the road and utilizing these areas in order to make that happen.
I appreciate the words in sync. You started off mentioning how the relationship between the enlisted advisor and the commander or the senior leader of an outfit, they must be in sync. They must develop healthy, professional, and productive relationships. And, I've been a part of relationships that were not as strong as they could have been. As you come into an organization, your commander or your leader that you're serving with, at least in days gone by, may have been in a different life cycle than you were in. In other words, I came into a unit as a battalion command sergeant major, and the battalion commander had about 2 months left on his command tenure. And he had a command sergeant major that he worked very close with. They had developed that relationship. They had moved the unit forward together, and his command sergeant major had PCS'd and moved to his new assignment, and I was the backfill. And almost in his mind, I believe, is he felt that his replacement would much more, that was the person who I was going to influence better and the one who I needed to develop the relationship with. So though we worked together and were cordial and we got the unit's mission done, just in a short period of time, we did not develop the relationship that you would expect between a commander and their senior enlisted leader. And in the end, it could have been non-productive for the unit. Now, sometimes things like that are just a part of the nature of transition. But the theory is, and Sergeant Major Davis was highlighting the point of the fact that the command teams need to work well together to have a functioning unit. So, as we look at this parallel chain, we recognize there is but one chain of command. However, there is this parallel chain of information and communication called the Nco Support Channel, and it runs from probably the platoon. You might argue the section sergeant or may fill a role in there if you have an organization that have sections. Some may argue that they're more administrative than in the chain of command, but you could debate that all day, and we'll just follow a traditional path and say from the platoon sergeant, they are the enlisted advisor to the platoon leader, and the first sergeant is the enlisted advisor to the commander, and so on and so forth. And we all hear that the the NCOs run the Army. That's a great term, and it's bandied about in a lot of cases. And the fact is, though, is we may run it, but we don't command it. We don't command those organizations, and that's left to our commanders. So the way we do operate within our two authorities that we spoke about, the Command Authority and the General Military Authority, we operate using the delegated authority that comes through our, the rightful commanders. But then this supporting NCO Support Channel has 10 functions, which are specified tasks that non-commissioned officers in the NCO Support Channel will provide. Now, there's a lot of guidance and TTPs and history or lore that may or may not be out there. Some people may have one opinion on certain events and activities, and others may have another. But when it comes to the NCO Support Channel, there are 10 directed functions that channel, that complementary channel to the chain of command, will follow. And I just to highlight a few of them, so it can facilitate our discussion. Some of them are transmitting the professional Army ethic. And last week we spoke a little bit about ethics. Some when we were talking in podcast number 2 when we talked trust. It also the NCO Support Channel is used for planning and conducting the day-to-day unit operations within the policies and directives. So, we're not independent operators. Commanders, lay out their command guidance, and the Non-Commissioned Officer Support Channel operates within those policies. Training of enlisted soldiers in their MOS, as well as warrior tasks and basic skills. That's one of the predominant roles of the Non-Commissioned Officer Corps is training and supervising enlisted soldiers. So the next one of the 10 is supervising PT, teaching soldiers the history of the Army, including customs, courtesies, and traditions, is the 5th one. Caring for individual soldiers and their families on and off duty. Teaching soldiers the mission of the unit and developing individual training plans. Administering the Non-Commissioned Officer Development Program. And then the 10th one is achieving and maintaining courage, candor, competence, commitment, and compassion. Now, if you listen to podcast number 2, you may recall I got tongue-tied on those 5 C's right there. But you could probably say this thing was written in March 2008 was the latest, and there may have been a rapid update. But you could probably go ahead and add to number 10 in your own mind. The 7 Army values, because these are values that we all hold dear. So that is besides the general military authority, besides the authority that comes to us from our position and the delegated authority. Those are the 10 functions of the NCO Support Channel, and are what the day-to-day activities are of a non-commissioned officer in the operation of their unit. So Archie, what's your thoughts about these 10 functions? Tell me a little bit about how we use them going about our day-to-day business to get the Army's business done.
Well, the heart of the non-commissioned officer is taking care of the soldier and his welfare and his family and doing the Army business. And we have an ideal. We are in an ideal position as a non-commissioned officer to secure the trust and the confidence of our soldiers that we lead, because we're there. We are there at the action level, where that important day-to-day business is conducted. That's where we are. So we are in the mix of the things that's got to get done on a daily battle rhythm. So with that said, our soldiers is going to look at us as the authoritarian figure. which was rightly so. And with that said, they're going to open up. They're going to put trust in us. They're going to build confidence in us. They are going to challenge us a lot on a daily basis. But that is the life of a non-commissioned officer. And see, our commissioned officers know that. If they're not, they need to be aware of it, that's an ideal person within your organization that we need to leverage that experience. We need to leverage that connectivity. And, in every organization I was in, my officer would come to me and say, look, what's going on today? The day-to-day battle rhythm, what's going on today? Because that'll give him a pulse of the organization. He came to me because I know. He came to me because I've been involved in the regular things that go on. He came to me because if it's something going wrong, we're going to do it better, and he can give guidance and direction on that. So at that level, we see ourselves. If we're going to be effective, we need to make sure that communication is very set with you and your commander, and he knows your role and within that organization, and we can lead together effectively.
Good, thank you, Archie. So we talk about these about the basic responsibility of the non-commissioned officer. So every NCO has had it drilled in their head that our two most basic responsibilities are the accomplishment of the mission and the welfare of our soldier. That's the two most basic responsibilities. So as you look at the 10 responsibilities, the 10 functions of the NCO Support Channel, you see very clearly where that statement emanates from. Training of the enlisted soldiers, planning and conducting the day-to-day unit operations, caring for soldiers and their families. Those three functions alone equate to accomplishment of the mission and the welfare of our soldiers. Now, welfare doesn't mean coddling. It's not about, we're expected to baby our soldiers. There's tough love sometimes. You got to apply tough love. So this isn't about babying your soldiers, but it's about, caring for them. It's about teaching them. It's about training them. It's about supervising them. Those are the types of things that we as non-commissioned officers have to do. It's about instilling in them the Army values to help them to become a soldier that is moral, is ethical, is responsible. It's about being responsible for the equipment that's been assigned to us. Those are the types of things that the Non-Commissioned Officer Support Channel is responsible for in its day-to-day duties. So, when we say, NCOs run the Army, when we say that, what we're saying is we're planning and conducting the day-to-day unit operations within the prescribed policies and procedures. That's what we say when we that's what we intend when we say those words. The challenge is others may take it in a different manner, and it's up to us to clarify and to speak with knowledge of these policies and procedures, because some may misperceive the way that we say that, the way that a leader may stand up and say, "I run this outfit," and they may take it as we're being with bravado, or if we're being arrogant. Some people may take that as arrogance, whether it's internal, whether it's external. If you're in a position of authority, if you're a first sergeant and you stand in front of the company and talk about running your company, there's a couple of commissioned officers who may be leading platoons who may take objection to that. So this is nothing more than ensuring that we articulate, that we say clearly, and demonstrate the authority that we do in fact have, how it applies, and then we do it, ensuring that we provide, we provide oversight to our soldiers, that their welfare is something that we are focused on, and then that we accomplish the mission. And I don't know that one comes first, or accomplishment of the mission is all that we do, but you don't have a mission without a soldier. So, what's your thoughts about those two basic tenets, Archie?
Well, you said a couple of things that I kind of noted on here: knowing and applying. I mean, that is basically, the key there. I need to know my role. I need to know my authority, but how to apply it in my organization to keep the ball rolling. It's a couple of different, testimonials I have that goes in this area that I have tried to make sure that as a non-commissioned officer, I kind of share the wealth. In an event that you have misconduct, and when you get a large organization, you need to ensure that the first thing out the gun is not non-judicial punishment. And it's clearly stated in AR 620 that we need to consider corrective measures when we see something going wrong. And that's that knowing the authority and how to apply. And basically, you look at the soldier, every situation is not the same. Myself, I look at it, analyze the situation, see the history of the soldier, and if that misconduct does not require non-judicial punishment, of course, corrective actions will occur. That was my first course, and I had to preach that within my organization on how to use that authority based on coming out of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, as well as AR 600-20, to help keep good order and discipline within my organization. If in fact you violated or you violated a uniform regulation, you would be conducting corrective training in that specific area of that event. I mean, you might be, example, and it has happened in my tenure, wearing your Class B or Class A uniform for a certain period of time, showing me that you could actually wear it properly. That's corrective actions, corrective training, not just non-judicial punishment.
But what about smoking? What about smoking a soldier? Maybe I can smoke a soldier, and that'll correct his training.
Well, the smoking is a dialogue that people use that doesn't go in the vein of corrective action. If the corrective action is defined in AR 600-20 as corrective training, is defined as that utilizing that event that occurred and training that soldier on what he or she did not do correctly. I give him other training or her other training that will help them correct that action that's going contrary to what I want them to do. And, the word, the terminology of smoking and things of that nature, I didn't use that. I made sure that my non-commissioned officer knew where my authority was coming from and how to apply it. Again, knowing and how to apply it in that actual event or that vignette.
So I think what you're saying is I know what you're saying is what you are saying is that the the corrective action needs to apply to the shortcoming.
Yeah.
If in the motor pool, uh, you know, one of the squad's vehicle cabs is filled with garbage, the driver or the crew or the squad just their vehicles in the motor pool just look like hell. Nobody's out there policing them up. The corrective action is not push-ups to muscle failure. The corrective action to take would be one relating to the problem. The problem is they're failing to follow the standard. They have their equipment is not up to the company standard. Maybe it's not the platoon policy. It's not up to the platoon SOP. So what you do is you take appropriate action and you provide corrective training to the soldier that relates to the problem. So there's a whole number of things that you want to do. What you're trying to do is change behavior, not smoke a soldier.
Yes.
Now, what happens if you have a soldier who continuously has repetitive problems that are, they're compounding. They're just one on top of another. They're failing their PT tests. They can't make height and weight. Their equipment's dirty. They lose their gear. They're late to formations. Those types of trends are the types of things that you want to take action on, and necessarily smoking them or applying a corrective training that doesn't apply to any of those things. If you're putting them on, if you have a soldier who had those problems I just named, the best thing may not be is to take them on a 20-mile ruck march on a Saturday to get them to correct their actions. Now, it may help their physical fitness in some capacity, but if they're failing on push-ups, then what's a ruck march going to do for them? They need to work on their upper body strength. They need to work on their form. So making the punishment fit the crime. It's probably not the correct term, because non-commissioned officers don't punish. So as I use the phrase, we apply corrective training. We don't have the authority to punish. That's the commander's prerogative. So, you always hear about things like NCO justice. Would you rather deal with me, or would you rather deal with the old man? You find yourself on a slippery slope when you're doing those kind of things. You consider the climate, the environment that you're creating, and once you cross that line, now somebody's got something on you, and your character is no longer beyond reproach. And that's something we as NCOs, once we start giving that away, people got something over you, and you almost become in their debt. So I appreciate that, Archie, about making the punishment fit the crime. Let me ask you something though. There's of these 10 functions, which one's more important? Is there a function that's more important?
No, it's we need to look at it holistically as to our charge as a non-commissioned officer, as taking care of the mission, getting the mission accomplished, and taking care of our soldiers. And in that, we got those functions that's going to help us do that. And you talked about some things as far as the soldier. See, we do things to ensure that we keep good order and discipline, but all the things that we do as a non-commissioned officer is in the vein of also training the soldier, training that next generation of leader, because we're not going to be that long. We're going to move on. So, I know here pretty soon we're going to talk about some NCO development, but, everything that I did as a non-commissioned officer, I made sure that subordinate leader understood, why I was doing it and how, I applied that within our organization, because I want that soldier, that non-commissioned officer, to see it work, and I think that a lot of times we'll get these informal classes or formal classes, but I learned so much on my informal non-commissioned officer development with the sergeant major, the first sergeant, just basically giving me those things to uh, help me run that organization, help me run that squad, help me run that section or that platoon. They pulled me to the side, and I learned so much in that. And we need to get back to that. We as an organization, we as a unit organization need to get back to that. And I think the theme of the AR 600-20 is that we know our roles, we know our responsibilities, we know our authority, but we've got to train that next generation as well. I always allude to again the NCO creed. Taking care of my soldiers and accomplishing the mission. And so that is where we, as non-commissioned officers, should continue to focus and use those functions that you talked about to help us do that.
Yeah, I think one function is not more important than the other, and it's easy to see in the field. In today's Army, a number of non-commissioned officers following these 10 functions. Some maybe a little bit more than others. It's there are there's the three right up front: training soldiers, caring for soldiers, teaching soldiers, planning and conducting day-to-day unit operations. That's the bread and butter of the non-commissioned officer corps. Where there's some other areas you may not see the same level of effort. The non-commissioned officer development program, how's that going for you? Transmitting and instilling the professional Army ethic. How do we do that? We do that by example, but what are we as non-commissioned officers doing organizationally? What about teaching the history of the Army? Are we doing a good job talking about the heritage and the customs and courtesies and traditions? So it's easy to talk about NCO business and without putting any meat behind it. It's just a term. But when you start quantifying it and you look at these 10 functions, evaluate yourself. Am I doing these things? And you got to do it at each level. If you're a squad leader, these are your responsibilities, just like they are the first sergeant. If you run a company or a battalion or a platoon, as a member of the Nco Support Channel, these are things you should be doing. And oh, by the way, you should be checking your subordinate units to ensure they're doing the same. If you're a first sergeant, you need to ensure that your platoon sergeants are performing these functions. If you're a brigade sergeant major, you're looking down to ensure your battalions are performing these functions. And if you're not, you probably need to do a course correction. So, what I tell you is one is not more important than the other. They're all 10 equally important and things that we need to do. So I appreciate that commentary. One of the things that we kind of want to take a look at for a moment is the non-commissioned officer development program. It's always kind of unique, NCOPD, NCODP, are they the same? One is professional development, and the other is a development program. And a development program is written out, and it's pretty clear about what we do when it comes to a non-commissioned officer development program. Archie, what's your sense of NCO development programs in the Army today?
Well, I always say, that every day is a training day. If you are not open to, advice, guidance, development, you not last long or be a effective leader. Every day is a training day. So with that said, development and strengthening of leadership, leaders' skills and professional attributes within the Corps should be the non-commissioned officers, one of the non-commissioned officer development objectives. We should be strengthening their skills. Because the actual units that I was the senior enlisted advisor of, I made quick assessments. I made assessments as soon as I got in, and I kept assessing to ensure that if, in fact, a leader needed some focus in a specific area, I would give them that guidance. I would give them those things to put in their toolbox to help them in that area. I had First Sergeant. He didn't have effective meetings with his platoon sergeants. I helped him establish an agenda so that when they came in, they would go in and they would have an agenda that made him facilitate better that meeting and made it a lot more efficient so they can get out there and get after it. So it's just things that we need to do as leaders to assess the environment that we're in so that we can help develop the non-commissioned officer. And NCO non-commissioned officer development program must do that and provide guidance. It might be things from higher that hadn't trickled down yet. It's okay to repeat what the organization, because a lot of people may have not gotten it. So that guidance or that guidance from higher might need to be placed in a forum that we can talk about it and how we can apply it within our organization. Also, if you have an effective non-commissioned officer development program, it'll increase confidence in the non-commissioned officer corps. You know how you can get some non-commissioned officers gathered together at a regular time during your tenure as the sergeant major of the first sergeant. You can get these NCOs together, and you can notice that they're talking among themselves. That is critical because every first sergeant in your organization is going to be involved in similar things, and some not so similar. They can share those experiences with each other, and that helps them be more effective. And with the non-commissioned officer professional development program, we must foster a unit environment that enhances continued NCO leader development. We must make sure that we have an effective program, but we need to make sure that they know that unit know that this is their program. This is for you. You need to create that environment in your organization that, look, it is a developmental unit organization because we want to grow more effective leaders within our organization.
Thanks, I appreciate that. When you look at NCO authority, it wasn't that long ago as the Army was winding down from a long period of conflict that the non-commissioned officer corps struggled. Some say that the soldiers within the Army who were faced with repeated deployments to Vietnam, separated from the service, they left. Also, it was mostly Vietnam was quite often the draftees war. Many times, young men and women were drafted into the Army, served with enough time to serve a hitch in Vietnam, and then come back and transition and were separated. So as the Army came out of Vietnam, some say the NCOs gave away their authority. Others say that it was taken from them, which is neither here nor thou. The fact is as an Army begins to come out of a period of conflict, especially like the one we've been in since 9/11, fighting two wars, high national expenses. We just look at the debt that we've run up as a nation, and we look at the budgetary cuts that are being made. We look at some of the personnel programs that are being instituted, such as the QSP, which may take over strength or will take over strength MOSs and summarily release soldiers. Maybe in some cases MOSs will not be allowed to re-enlist because of force caps. So as the Army begins to bring its numbers down, the quality standards will hopefully rise. But what happens in that is, you almost get back to a zero tolerance mentality where everybody is trying to, focus on protecting themselves and their careers. And because of that, we may see others will step in to ensure success and to ensure the natural learning process that allows for failure may go away. And when that happens, non-commissioned officers need to be in a position where they can, one, know and understand their authority, maintain the character and of themselves, the trust their leaders have in them, so that we can continue to run our Army and perform the day-to-day mission. So, it's a risk. We've got to be prepared for it, and it's something that we always have to keep in our mind as we look at the future and where we're going in the Army. So Archie, I'd like to ask you any last final words on today's topic of authority of the non-commissioned officer.
Yes, today, for me is one of the things that it's been great talking on this subject. But in our armed forces manual book that's out, they hit home on a lot of different things. But what I would like, especially for the officers, to take away from this is that, the competence, the credibility of the Corps and the capabilities of our Corps will not be understood unless you know the environment, unless you know that non-commissioned officer's role and responsibility that he or she has. And understanding that, you will understand that we are there doing the day in and day out rigor of the organization, your organization. But unless we get clear and defined guidance on a regular basis, okay, we cannot do it effectively. We must have that leader, that commander that's responsible for commanding that organization, to be in sync with that senior enlisted advisor. In turn, he will ensure that the subordinate non-commissioned officers know, and we can continue to do the day-to-day business of that organization effectively, which is getting ready to fight the nation wars and taking care of the welfare of our soldiers.
Great, I appreciate that, Arch. If you consider the non-commissioned officer, the authority that we've been given. In a lot of cases, we operate independently. We operate without supervision or a lot of supervision in some cases. It is critical to the health of the non-commissioned officer corps that we develop the relationships between the officer and enlisted member, the platoon leader and his platoon sergeant, the company commander and the first sergeant, the battalion commander and the command sergeant major. Each of these relationships must be nurtured to ensure that they retain the confidence in the ability of their NCOs to perform the functions of the Nco Support Channel. And when we lose that, when we give it away, when we're not capable, when we're not credible, when we don't care about our soldiers, when that happens, it becomes a cancer within our organization. And typically, there is a natural or unnatural movement to pull away those authorities. So, NCOs, we challenge you, understand your authority, know what your authorities are, build those relationships, and be great soldiers.
You've been listening to the NCO Guide podcast, sponsored by pptclasses.com. PPT Classes, your one-stop shop for all of your pre-made classes needs. The NCO Guide is a Top Sarge Business Solutions Productions and partners with tbsvet.com. All our music is provided courtesy freestockmusic.com. Thanks, and come back again.